Call the meeting to order. At this time, we have the distinct honor and pleasure of having Dr. Rasmus from Antioch Church come up and do the invocation. So if everybody would stand for the invocation, and then we'll do the Pledge of Allegiance and also the Texas Pledge.
Good evening, everyone. It is an honor indeed to be here and have the privilege of giving the invocation tonight. So shall we pray. Gracious Father, we're grateful for this day, Lord, but it's been a long day for many of us. God, it's been filled with events we anticipated and some we didn't. And for this council and those who are here in this assembly, Lord, there's still yet work to be done. God, as I heard the chatter, Lord, I was reminded of how important it is to be involved in local government, the families that are represented here, the constituencies that are represented here. God, this work matters. And so we ask that your Spirit would be in our midst, God, that you would give discernment and a discerning eye, Lord, that your will and your purposes might be accomplished, that those who are receiving awards tonight, God, would realize that their community is behind them. Those who are bringing new plans would understand that it affects everyone within the boundaries of this great city. Lord, it warms my heart to know that these members of this community care so very deeply. We pray that you will be honored by their service and by their sharing their hearts and their perspectives. We love you. It's in Jesus' name that I pray. Amen.
Face the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you, Dr. Rasmussen. I just would like to make a special note. They have just celebrated their 20th anniversary here in the city of Corinth, and several of us attended his anniversary festivities up at the Gateway, and also last Sunday I was at their church and I worshiped with them, and I also read a proclamation for their 20-year anniversary. So again, congratulations, and we're really happy you're in the city of Corinth. Okay, I have we're going to do a proclamation tonight, but this is kind of special, okay? And this comes from the office of the mayor of Corinth, Texas. Since 1916, Girl Scouts have accepted the challenge of earning the movement's highest award, thereby demonstrating a commitment to bettering themselves, their communities, and the world. And whereas the highest award has had different names over the years, including the Golden Eaglet, the Curved Bar, First Class, and since 1980, the Girl Scouts Gold Award. And whereas those who have earned it have shown the same outstanding leadership skills, determination, and resiliency that have made Girl Scouts' highest award a unique rite of passage for young women across the movement. And Piper Davis of Girl Scout Troop 6216 had a vision to create a dog park in the city of Corinth. She met with City Manager Hart over 2 years ago to discuss her idea and share her proposal to the City Planning and Zoning Commission in August of 2020. Piper has worked closely with Melissa Dolan from Public Works and the Parks and Rec Board to bring her idea to life. She has volunteered over 100 hours, raised almost $10,000 through a GoFundMe campaign, secured 6 bench sponsorships at $1,000 each, and raised an additional $1,800 in brick donations. The first phase, which marks everything needed to open the dog park to the public, is almost complete. The grand opening is scheduled for this spring, and whereas Piper Davis will be recognized by the Girl Scouts for her faithful and steady path taken within the Scouting organization and successfully completing all requirements for Girl Scouts Gold Award. Now, therefore, I, Bill Heidemann, by virtue of the authority vested in me as mayor of Corinth, Texas, do hereby honor Piper Davis for her leadership and service to her community and applaud her achievement of the Gold Award. Signed the 15th day of December 2022. Now, if council will please come down here and get their picture taken. This is from page
Oh my gosh, thank you. Where am I going?
Our country's in trouble. When you have young ladies like this that can do this.
Thank you.
I'll step over here so everybody can get in.
Let's go. Can we go that way so I can get the thing out of this screen? Oh, that's terrible. Oh, I can't stop. Everybody ready?
We want to present this plaque to you and remember to take it.
Thank you.
And you can have this. You want me to give this to your mother?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for recognizing me tonight. This has been a very long project, and it was not something I thought I would ever do. I have had so many people backing me over not only my entire time as a Girl Scout, but especially these past 2 years with this project. So just thank you. I am so excited to see it built, and I'm so excited to get to come back and visit and see how it has impacted our community for the years that it'll be here. And one last thing, I was asked to mention that brick donations are still open at that'smybrick.com/CorinthDP for dog park, or you can go to our Facebook page, Corinth Dog Park, or the website that we have with the city. So thank you.
Thank you. Thank you and congratulations. Do council members have anything they'd like to comment on about this? No. Thank you. Congratulations. Okay. Citizens' comments. Please limit your comments to 3 minutes. Comments about any of the council agenda items are appreciated by the council and may be taken into consideration at this time or during that agenda item. Council is prohibited from acting on or discussing items brought before them at this time.
I'm sorry, I should have looked at this before. I think that they don't want to speak when the items up for discussion. Not now. These are just up for when it comes up for discussion, so nobody wants to speak during citizens' comments.
They want to do it at the time. All right, we'll do it that time. Okay. This time we'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve.
I'll second.
Is there any further discussion? Cast your vote. It's unanimous. Okay, go to item number 11, which is conduct a public hearing and consider testimony on acting on a rezoning request for the applicant, Graystar Development Central LLC. And at this time, the developer has requested us to table this item. And Mr. Campbell, did you have something you wanted to put in add?
I think John is going to give you a little update on this request from the developer.
Mayor, for clarification, this is item number 12. We're going to flip the order, so this is item number 12. We did receive requests from the developer this afternoon to table this item to January 19th. So I would respectfully request a motion to open the public hearing, continue the public hearing to January 19th.
Okay.
Table and continue the public hearing to January 19th. January 19th. It's 7 p.m. It's 6:30. We advertise it for 6:30. Okay.
Okay. Entertain a motion.
Mayor, I would move that we continue the public hearing, which has been opened until January 19th at 6:30 p.m.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Cast your vote. It's unanimous. Okay, next item. Conduct a public hearing to consider testimony and act on the ordinance for a rezoning request by the applicant, Scorberg Company, to amend the zoning ordinance and zoning map of the city of Corinth, each being a part of the Unified Development Code of the city, from SF2 single-family residence to a planned development with a base zoning district of MF1 multifamily residential on approximately 14.16 acres, generally located on the east side of North Corinth Street, south of Shady Shores Road, and north of North Central Texas College. Case number ZAP D 22-003, Greenway Trails. Mr. Campbell.
Mayor and Council, this item was actually postponed because of we had an issue with quorum, you recall, at that last meeting in November, and so we had to renotice this for this meeting. But this is the required public hearing and the ordinance for this zoning request by Scorberg Company, and our staff tonight is going to make a presentation. Michelle Meixel is here to give you the information on this project.
Sorry.
No, that's all right. Well, which one?
That's it.
That's the one?
In a presentation.
Okay.
Yeah. I wasn't sure if you wanted me to do
Oh,
something.
no, sorry about that. Yeah,
That's
sorry.
okay. Oh.
Does he want me to?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Council. This is the Greenway Trails plan development. It's a townhouse-style multifamily project that is been in the works for some time now. The developer has been working back and forth with staff over numerous months to bring something forward to you that we felt that we could support. As a way to acclimate you to the site, this is North Corinth Street. This is NCTC College to the south. The project is about 14 acres plus 14 acres located on the east side of North Corinth Street. They're requesting a propose in the single-family base zoning district to create a PD with a multifamily base. It is currently single-family. They're proposing 121 attached townhouse-style multifamily units, 26 two-story buildings in all, ranging between 3 and 6 units each. The max density on this site would be 8.8 acres with a max net of 12. The grid, you'll see that there's a grid pattern of streets that are proposed with private drives and alleys, so it will mimic very closely to the Timber Ridge project that you approved and the Bennett Tract a bit ago. So it will look very similar to that project. In terms of existing site conditions, there are 4 parcels in all, totaling approximately 14 acres, 2 vacant pieces, and 2 with existing single-family dwellings on large lots. The terrain is sloping in various directions. The site is treed with about 121 protected trees on site. And the surrounding uses are single-family to the east, the Somerset single-family development, and then some additional large lots north and south. The property to the west of North Corinth Street is some of which is vacant, is currently zoned for industrial. Existing zoning, as I mentioned, is SF2, single family, minimum lot size of 14,000 square feet. The future land use category for this parcel, identified by the star, is a part of the TOD, the transit-oriented development. You may recall from past projects, the max density here is market-driven, recommended for a range of urban residential, and the density design would be based on a grid pattern of streets, would be dense and walkable with small greens. There would be connections to trails and adjoining uses. So you'll see that the developer took these concepts seriously when they laid out their plan to incorporate greens, the interconnection, and the grid pattern. They also listened to our desire for a side path, or what's called a trail, along the North Corinth Street, and they're proposing a 6-foot wide trail running north-south for the length of their property. In more detail, again, 121 dwelling units. Each will have 2-car garages and a 2-car parking spaces to the rear. They front along each of the private drives that will look very much like a typical public street designed in an urban form, with sidewalks, bump outs for on-street parking, shade trees along the corridor, alleys to the rear with pads, again, for parking, and then internal integral garages. The grid pattern of streets, they're also proposing, in addition to the, I think it's 4 in all parking spaces per dwelling. Am I saying that correctly? Yeah, 4 dwelling units, or 4 per dwelling unit. They're proposing an additional 40 on-street parking spaces. In terms of private recreation amenities, they're meeting the minimum requirement of 8%, which is required for all multifamily projects. They're providing a pool, a cabana and lawn area. They're proposing a central amenity area that would be on an urban green, more formal green. And they also have additional muse lots, open space pockets. So if you've been out to Walton Ridge, the single-family development with the cottages, those are examples of what the muse lots look like, where the dwellings are fronting on with the alleys behind. One positive for the tree preservation is, in addition to providing a meandering trail along North Corinth Street, which is going within their landscape edge buffer, they'll provide us with pedestrian access easement. They are doing so to preserve a grove of trees along North Corinth, as well as a large heritage tree that's located to the south. They are proposing 3 stormwater ponds at this point, 2 along the frontage. There'll be bookends to the property and landscaped with ornamental fencing. And then there's a larger pond to the rear that the dwellings will front on in this location, and then also have a relationship to the urban green. Staff's preference is that the ponds would be wet. Ponds in particular, the one that's located in the northeast corner. In terms of representative product styles, we worked back and forth with the applicant, and they did agree along North Corinth Street to provide the front facades 100% masonry with no more than 10% cement board, and with interior facades 100% masonry with no more than 50% cement board. And you'll see the asterisks here, that's except windows and doors. And they're providing something unique to create that urban streetscape along North Corinth Street with little, they call it door yards, fencing, 4-foot fencing with stoops, and then shrubbery, and that will be carried throughout the plan. This is a side elevation, and I know that John Arnold, the applicant, has a lot more detail than what I'm presenting here. They're showing representative rear elevations as well, and these would be representative of the units that would be front along North Corinth Street. Quickly, just pulled out some of the key departures. I know you have a detailed chart in the staff report, some notable items, and just as a reminder, the plan development concept is designed to provide applicants the opportunity to present to you some innovative or different design standards or concepts that aren't currently permitted by our ordinance, which is more suburban in nature. So you'll see that this is why there was a list of the different design standards in your staff report. Some are noteworthy. The maximum density of the existing multifamily base 1 is 12 units per acre, and they're really staying close within that, even though the future land use comprehensive plan suggests density that could be much higher. Their market driven is really within the F1. Minimum side yard, they're proposing 30 feet. They're staying within the MF1 district, except that, there's a building number 6 that, in order to keep the more urban feel, would be encroaching in that side yard by a maximum of 15 feet. So just so that they can keep the grid pattern. I can point that dwelling out in just a moment. Tree preservation, they are agreeing up front to preserve a minimum of the 10% of the healthy trees on site, which includes the heritage tree and a small grove. That was a stipulation of the P&Z, and the applicant did incorporate that into their PD design statement. Of course, staff is hoping that this percentage, when they get into site plan, might increase a bit in terms of protecting, but they are at a minimum agreeing to preserve 10%. Landscape planting, something unique about this project. Our suburban style standards in the MF3 require much larger front and side yards. In order to permit the Muse concept and the rear alley access, we reduced that a bit, and in exchange for that, they're providing a minimum of 1 shade tree per unit, so you have 121 shade trees additional planted onto the site, including 1 ornamental tree per every 2 units, and then 6 shrubs per unit. So it's very similar to what we would have seen if this was a single-family attached, individually platted townhouse lot. One thing I do want to point out, the trail and land dedication requires for all of our developers 1 acre per 50 dwelling units, or a fee in lieu of. They have agreed to add benching along the 6-foot trail on North Corinth Street. So we staff are asking for your consideration that the area of open space that's adjacent to the trail, including the width of the trail, be permitted to offset some of the requirement for the park and recreation fee dedication. We do that commonly with other developers, and it would be about plus or minus 17,000 square feet. So it's just under a quarter of an acre to offset their minimum of 2 point something acres. So it would be minimal, but it's something to as an incentive for what they're doing. In terms of street design, they are proposing all private drives or fire lanes. However, they will look and feel very similar to what's installed currently at the Walton Ridge project, and what you approved for Timber Ridge. They're urban-style design, the buildings fronting onto the streets in lieu of our suburban-style access drives, typical parking, which is required for multifamilies. So they've altered that. Shade trees planted in the bulb outs and within the Muse open space, and the buildings would be set back closer to the street with dooryards, creating this very intimate setting with the streetscape. The applicant, Scoreboard Company, conducted 2 neighborhood meetings to seek input to understand the concerns from the surrounding property owners. Meetings were held in March. Approximately 15 to 20 residents did attend, again in August of 22, and approximately 8 to 10. And we know that they have been in, I think it would be fair to say, constant contact with the neighbors. Letters of support as of this date, the city's received 2 letters of support and 2 letters of opposition from property owners within 200 feet of the subject property. In terms of the comprehensive plan, which is TOD, the land use development strategy, indicates the overall density should not have a max but be driven by the market. And also with this area being mid-block along North Corinth Street, focusing this area on retail or restaurant or some other commercial uses would be better set, in staff's opinion, closer to the commons with the higher intensity uses. So it does not appear to be supported by the market, nor would it be compatible with adjacent low density. So in our opinion, this fashion of development would be desirable and a market within market forces. The Planning and Zoning Commission on October 24 recommended unanimously to approve the Greenway Trails application. They did stipulate that the heritage tree and the small grove of 4 protected trees be incorporated into that minimum 10%. The applicant agreed and did so. Screening was added to a departure modification for residential adjacency. They added requirements and agreed to show heavily landscaped evergreen vegetation along the perimeter to buffer the existing residents. We staff specifically asked, rather than having board-on-board fences blocking that area, rather it would be a vegetative screen with ornamental decorative fence to be more in keeping with a more urban neighborhood rather than creating a wall. And plus the configuration of the property would create a very walled-off effect. The applicant, as I mentioned, has incorporated all of those items. Staff recommends approval as presented with the stipulation. We ask for your consideration that we add into Exhibit G, which is the development standards, that garages shall not front on private drives, and we list out A, B, C, D, and E, which are all of the private drives identified, and that garages shall be rear accessed by alleys and or fire lanes only, as specifically depicted on the exhibit. We ask that that be added. And then the applicant is here in attendance and has a presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Does council have any questions?
I have 2 questions, sir. Will you please repeat the garage stipulation? I tried to take notes as fast as I could, but yeah, and are they in agreement to it? I'm assuming yes. Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, garages shall not front onto private drives, A, B, C, D, E, and shall be rear accessed by alleys and or fire lanes only, as specifically depicted on Exhibit B, which is the PD concept plan.
Okay. And then one more quick question. It looks like the 2 that responded in opposition to the development, at least one of them had a pretty significant concern with drainage. In my experience, a development like this tends to correct drainage issues significantly, not add to.
Yes, that's my understanding, and I know that John Arnold can speak to that a bit further. George Marshall, our city engineer, will work closely at the time of site plan. They cannot increase the flow from what's currently on, and I've heard the applicant present in other settings that their project may in fact improve the current situation.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Is there any other questions?
I have one.
Mm-hmm.
Michelle, can you explain again why we're doing the in lieu of for the 1 acre of green space per 50? Why are we doing that? Is it because of the trail or?
Right, and it's very minimal. So I'll step back. I think I was probably going quickly. So sorry. I am a fast talker. We have a requirement for 1 acre per 50 dwelling units. So at 121 dwellings, they have to dedicate or give us fee in lieu of 2 or more acres. So because they agreed in our comprehensive plan, if you can see the trail of 6 feet, they've agreed to provide that. And then along the trail, meandering at different locations through the groves that are existing, they're going to provide some benching and a public pedestrian access easement. So we, public, will be able to enjoy on their property, not within the right-of-way, some of that land. So as an incentive to do that, when they did the length times width to get the square footage of what that area is, that came out to be about 17,000 square feet. So 1 acre is 43,560. So theirs is just about a quarter of those 2, 1/4 of an acre, less than a quarter of an acre that we would offset. So Miguel does the math very well, but it's would just offset any of the just that portion of fees that would be required. It's minimal, but staff believes it was an incentive for them to add the benching and allow us to have those access easements for public enjoyment along the street.
Anybody else have a question? Okay. Right. I presume the developer wants to. Okay.
Ooh, shocked me. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank y'all for having me back. I missed y'all last time I was here. I'm here on behalf of Scoreboard Company. My name's John Arnold. We are at 8214 Westchester Drive, Dallas, Texas. Suite 900, Dallas, Texas 75225. I'm also going to introduce in a second Nick here with Rangewater. He's going to tell you all about Rangewater, our partner. We've been working on this project, as Michelle said, I think for about 18 months now. We've met with staff, going over different designs, started diligently working on this, and we went to a P&Z work session in March and met with some neighbors in March. But between March and August, what we were really doing is trying to find the right partner to work with. And so I'm going to introduce the partner we're working with on this, because our expertise is single family. We're building a single family deal, but we looked for a company that manages these projects the best. Worked with a lot of different companies, and we selected Rangewater to work with us. So I'm going to introduce Nick. He's going to tell you a little bit about Rangewater, and I'll go over Scoreboard Company and some of the questions y'all had. But Michelle did a great job kind of explaining the project as a whole, and I'll go over some of the stuff we talked about with neighbors, and probably going to repeat some of the stuff she said, but I'll try not to repeat too many things. So we're going to go over Scoreboard Company, Rangewater, projects in Corinth, compatibility with the 2040 comprehensive plan, zoning overview, our neighborhood meetings, and our represented products. So we're a Scoreboard Company. We have 3 projects in Corinth currently. We're a locally owned development firm. We've got about 35 years of experience, over 100 projects in 25 different cities in the DFW Metroplex. We've got over 20 current projects in active development. We have a reputation for building high-quality, long-lasting communities. Our projects range from as small as, which I'll approve, Timber Ridge. I think it had like 40 lots, to 800-acre master plan communities. I'm going to let Nick introduce Rangewater, and then I'll be back to talk about us and kind of finish the presentation.
Good evening. My name is Nick Wilhelmsen. As John said, I'm with Rangewater Real Estate. We're located at 8235 Douglas Avenue here in Dallas. Just a quick overview of our company. We started back in 2006 as multifamily developers. Since that time, we've acquired and or developed almost 120 projects. And during that time, we've continued to kind of grow as a company, and over the last several years, we've moved into the build-to-rent for space, which is what this project is. So we currently have one of these under construction in Fort Worth, as well as a multifamily project. We've got one under construction down in San Antonio and across our company, which spans all the way from Atlanta, where we're headquartered. I'm here in Dallas. I oversee all of our Texas projects. But from Atlanta all the way across the Sun Belt and out into Denver, we've got about 25 projects under construction. We manage for ourselves and for others, and you see here we've got just over 86,000 units under management. So this is a project that we would build and then manage and hold on to. And so it's been exciting as we've started to kind of take our multifamily expertise and move into this line of business, because what we've learned is that we've got a lot of folks that have been renting apartments and like to continue to rent and maybe don't want to own a home, but want something that looks and feels more like a home. And so that's why when John approached us on this project, what we loved about it was that it was an opportunity to come in and create a community. And there's a lot of different groups that do this a lot of different ways. They go and they buy one-off houses and they rent them. Our idea is that we create a community. It's all going to be 2-story townhomes. They'll all be professionally, obviously managed and institutionally capitalized. So The goal is for us to find great locations, particularly in the suburbs where we know people want to live, and create that opportunity. And we've worked since we've been able to get involved. We've worked with John and with the staff, and are really hoping to create something that everybody can be proud of. We feel like that's what we've got, and we've had I know we've had good meetings with the neighbors, and that's always something that's important to us as a company. Since I opened our office here locally in 2018, in this day and age, reputations are everything, and they can easily be tarnished, and we take ours very seriously. And so when we tell the cities and the neighbors and the different folks that we care and that we want to do right by everybody, we mean it, and that's what we're here to do. So we love your neighborhood here. We want to be a part of it, and we hope that just the work that we've put in has kind of proved that to everybody up to this point. So I'm sure there may be some more questions, but I just wanted to give you a quick overview of who we are and kind of what we do.
Thank you, Nick. That was another slide for Nick. So I believe y'all know our projects. Walton Ridge, that's just north of City Hall. We're selling in that currently. Timber Ridge that we were approved for earlier this year. Hopefully starting construction right at the beginning of the year. We've just got our CLOMA approved by FEMA. We're waiting on some documentation and hope to break ground on that townhome community. It's very similar. This project is very similar to that Timber Ridge in style and the street patterns that Michelle was discussing earlier. We have Cross Point that was sold out, and then this property is just north of Walton Ridge on North Corinth Street. I'll go over this briefly because Michelle hit this very well, but we're in the TOD district, and per the 2040 comprehensive plan, Michelle explained this very well, but the densities are based more on the street grid and the market connections. One of the things we looked at this is connections to the adjoining uses. We have the college next door. We have the New Agora Park, all this activity here, Walton Ridge, all these neighborhoods, and that's a big part of the trail network that we want to be part of. We see this as a great location for this type of use in this TOD district. We'll just kind of keep moving forward. Just another slide on that, kind of showing what this slide is kind of showing is Walton Ridge. As you see, number 3 on there is Walton Ridge. We zone that front area for multifamily, and then we transitioned to that into the patio homes with the muses, and then we had our single family. We look at this kind of the same way. This is a transition out of that Agora district into the typical single family. Zoning overview, we're plus or minus about 14 acres. We're looking at 121 dwelling units, 8.8 units per acre gross, and 12.5 units per acre net. Our typical multifamily is somewhere between 25 to 45. I think Walton Ridge was actually zoned for 45 units per acre, so this is much less dense than a multifamily project. It's in line with Timber Ridge. Minimum floor area is 1,200 square foot. Minimum open space is 20%. Minimum tree preservation, as Michelle went over, we're really looking to, one of the reasons that trail is 6 foot is so we could meander that through and keep some trees. This property, again, is a lot like Walton Ridge. It's hard to find the spot to make flat. We've got 3 different drainage areas and a lot of topography, so we're trying to look for the places to keep those trees, and we've promised to keep 10%, much like we did on Walton Ridge. Minimum parking required. We have 524 spaces. Like Michelle's, four spaces per unit plus an additional 40. And then we enhance architectural standards like the door yards. So the homes facing out on North Corinth Street will kind of have like little stoops. So you'll kind of walk out into your own little yard. It'll have a 4-foot fence with shrubs around it, so you'll walk out into your door yard. So it's kind of that kind of townhome urban feel. And as Michelle went over, we worked on our front facade articulation with staff back and forth for many iterations, and I think we've got a great product. Our screening plan, as Michelle said, we're looking at this more as an open field, but we're looking to do ornamental fencing around the project, but have a living screen buffer. So we'll be planting evergreens like eastern red cedars, magnolia trees around the portion of this property to actually create a buffer, an opaque buffer with vegetation instead of having a brick wall or a high wood fence all around, just kind of closing this off. And then Greenway Trails amenities, a pool and a cabana are planned for that open space, along with a green. There'll be outdoor pool, cabana, outdoor dining, grilling area, decorative landscaping throughout, 6-foot trail, and screened amenitized detention retention areas. To the neighboring meetings, some of the things that came up during our neighborhood meetings. Our first neighborhood meeting was in March, and then we had a P&Z workshop, and then we had another neighborhood meeting in August, and then we had our follow-up meeting with P&Z. But throughout that process, we've been in close contact with a lot of our neighbors. I think there's a group of neighbors that's been, I think, at every one of those meetings with me, and we've been communicating back and forth. Some of the big things that came up were the screening, making sure that we had that opaque landscape buffer. Drainage came up as a concern. I'll discuss that in a little more detail. Traffic patterns, traffic, there'll be calls from this. I'll address that here in a second. Quality product and our pricing, we discussed those things. And management and maintenance. Management and maintenance is one of the reasons that we selected Rangewater and took so long selecting our group. So the drainage concerns, this site, as you can see, I don't know if I can kind of point, or does this work? The mouse works. So we have kind of 3 drainage areas. One goes to the northwest, one goes to the southeast, and then we have about 40% of the property that comes over into Somerset. One of the major concerns has been with the Somerset neighbors. There's currently was a drainage channel that comes down from this pond and then goes straight north. Well, that drainage channel's kind of non-existent at this point. And it's been a major concern of that neighborhood. But what Michelle's referring to is when we design, we're going to actually have to expand that pond to the amount of water that's actually coming off of us. Much like Walton Ridge, we had this conversation over and over when we were here in front of you with Walton Ridge and staff and George. We worked on the drainage design for a while. I think the first design and the first thing we got proposed didn't work. So we came back and we put a new plan together. But what we will do is we'll make sure that we're not increasing the volume coming off of us. And also where you see that blue line that goes north, there'll be a pipe that goes underground up to Shady Rest. And so that swale that currently right now the water's just flowing onto these neighbors, there's nothing stopping it, nothing holding it. We'll actually put a pond in there to capture all the water from our development, release no more than it's already going, but we'll actually direct it away from the houses that it's flowing on right now into a pipe. Currently, there's a drainage channel that's not there, and it's just kind of flowing out. So there's no actual path for that water. So a lot of the neighbors are having issues with the drainage. We've talked to a lot of neighbors about what happens when we come through there, because there's a drainage easement there right now. We have some people that just put up new fences, I think a shed or something back there. We've discussed with them that we will be going through there. Any damage, fence will be replaced, much like we did on Walton Ridge. I had somebody put up a fence 2 weeks before the case was approved last time. We got to rip that down, put up a brand new one the next when we came out there. So we will work with the neighbors much as we have in the past in City of Corinth. We're going to be good neighbors. I think most of my neighbors next door have my cell phone number, so they will find me. Traffic. A big concern was that all the residents are going to turn up and they're going to go up to Shady Rest and they're going to take that route constantly. When we started this conversation, we were talking about when the Gore Park would start and the road and the connection down to Corinth Parkway. And now, by the time we've finished this conversation, it's started. So what we see is the traffic pattern is actually going to change, I think, from this college and the north area. It's going to come down that future North Corinth connection, hit Corinth Parkway, because it's easier to hit 35 that direction. So even if people do choose to go north, now there are 2 pathways over to 35. This, the bonding election, another thing that was brought up. I don't know the timing. I don't know when it's going to happen, but it is something possibly in the future that could benefit this project. It's not a short-term solution or something that's going to fix from us. But again, we're not going to put any more water than is already going there. We're not going to make any issues worse, and we are going to actually make it better for the neighbors that are surrounding us. Another connection in the future will come off of North Corinth Street and directly hit over to 35. So there's going to be a lot more direct routes than what was the original concern when we started talking about this with the neighbors. Our product elevations, Michelle hit on these. Along Corinth Street, we're going to have 100% masonry, 90% of that brick or stone, and only 10% cementous fiber. As she said, that does not include the windows. And the interiors are going to be 100% masonry, 50% brick or stone, and 50% 50% cementous fiber. I'm going to end with that plan, our plan on the screen, and both Nick and I are here for any questions from you or when the citizens speak.
Is there any question from council?
That northeast pond that's currently there, can you go back to that picture for me?
Yes, sir.
Please.
This one? This one?
That one.
Yes, sir.
So am I seeing that the blue area, you're going to be changing the flow of that pond, or is that?
No, sir. Currently, all of that water that comes off of, we're talking these blue arrows, currently everything just kind of flows onto these neighbors' properties. And there was supposed to be, when this development was developed, there was supposed to be a drainage swale that actually picked up this water and kept it from going into this person's backyard, going into this person's backyard, going into this person's. That swale's really non-existent. You can kind of see where it might have been at one point. So currently, all this flow just kind of goes onto these neighbors, and they've voiced it at each meeting. The water flows straight down, and some of this water that goes into this pond, if the pond fills up, it goes straight down. It's supposed to be captured by a swale that's not there. So what we're going to do is, you see here to the left, we'll have our street pattern. The streets will collect the water into inlets here and inlets here. There'll likely be some kind of collection here, bringing the water into this pond. So this pond will now collect that water. So this water that was flowing here will collect there.
And just to add to that, keeping in mind when you look at the image on the left, you're going to have homes that are going to have gutters and roofs, and you're going to have area drains, and all of, to Mr. Garber's point, I think that he made early on, all of those things will help because that will take all of that water into that pond, where today it just hits and it just runs right down the hill on top of those folks. Yeah. So just doing something at all, given the way the topography of the land currently is going to help immensely. But that will all be part of our drainage design as we go through the process.
So retention or detention?
So that pond in the back right there, we would like to make that a retention pond. But Michelle and I have talked about that multiple times. But I can't today promise that until I make sure the drainage works. I want to make sure that we have a design that works, a design that does what we say we're going to do, and a design that George agrees with before we say it's going to be retention. Likely it can be. Probably I'd give it an 85% chance it's going to be retention and have a fountain in it. But I didn't want to 100% commit in case that we need to make that detention to make sure that it captures all the water needed.
Okay, thank you. One other question, if I may. This may be for whoever can answer the question. Sorry. I understand that there's the Shady Shores Road and then Corinth, or the Agora Way, and then your timeline. How is that timeline all going to fit together? The reason for my question is for the citizens' concern about traffic.
So I would say that the Agora Park connection will be done before we're done. I don't think there's an answer on the Shady Shores. Sorry, I've been on Shady Rest so long with Walton Ridge. I can't change my. I can't.
So to the citizens' concern about people turning right,
mm-hmm.
If you go there out now and turn right, and then you turn left to get to the interstate, that's not pretty.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if you do that once or twice, you'll end up coming out of your subdivision and going left.
Yes, sir.
As long as the Gore Way is open.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions, Council?
I just have a quick question. What, just out of curiosity, what are the price points for the rent in these areas?
So we've got, our plan is for 3 bedrooms and 4 bedrooms. Our average square footage is a little over 1,600 square feet. I think the minimum that's in the PD is 12. With the starting rents will be a little over 2,800 for the 3 bedrooms, and the 4 bedrooms would be a little over 3,000.
I have a question for on this pond retention.
Yes, sir.
So, when this pond starts releasing the water,
Yes, sir.
what controls that?
So typically, I do this and everybody's going to make fun of me again. It's like your bathtub. So you have like an overflow structure. So there's a box. So you'll have the pond. At the end of the pond where the outfall structure is, there'll be a head wall that releases just that typical everyday rain. And it goes through, it goes in the pond, and it goes out the bottom of it. And it releases it at a certain rate. Once the water gets too fast, it starts filling up. So it'll catch into there's another slot in the top of that drainage, so it's like a box, and then it catches in the top box and releases out. So there's a drainage structure at the end that controls it. There's multiple ways to do it. If you've driven by, a spillway at a lake, you're fishing, you drive by, there's like just a hole. You could drive your boat right into it, and water just spills over. But that's all timed. So the actual structure that's in there is based on the timing and release. So there'll be a structure at the end of that releases at the rate that it's released today.
Which goes back to the question of whether it will be a retention or a detention.
Right.
We have to run all of those calculations to determine if it's possible to keep it as a retention or if it would be better served to be a detention pond.
Just a suggestion, and that is, I learned this on the COG board on drainage, that there is some new technology out there for those retention and detention ponds for releasing that is computerized and computer driven, and it really will solve a lot of the drainage problems that you have under the normal conditions if you're using some kind of a mechanical type of release.
We'll work with staff on that. Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Are there any other questions?
Will this have on-site management?
Yes, ma'am. It will. That we'll have a manager that would live on site as well as a service manager. Unlike a typical multifamily project where we have a lot of different staff, it will be staffed, but we'll just have a couple of folks that will be there. And then we'll have landscape, all of our landscape work and all of that will be contracted.
Any other question? Okay. At this time, I'm going to open it up for public. At this, we have a couple people that'd like to speak at the public hearing here. Please state your name and your address when you approach the podium, and you have 3 minutes to express yourself. And the first person is Lawrence Warden.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and council members. Appreciate your time. Try to talk like a former Chicagoan as fast as possible. I sent you some notes previously that you've already received on the property. My wife, I'm Larry Warden. I live at 3301 Benbrook Cove. I'm the property to the northeast corner of the development where the retention pond is at currently. My wife, Ray, is also with me here as well. We've lived in that property for 23 plus years. Over that 23 plus years, the city has had to come out at least 3 separate occasions to rework the water issues that we have with that property. But when the pond fills up and the water's flowing in our 5-year events or 100-year events or 500-year events, it fills up relatively quickly, and there's a ton of water that comes out of it. So, bottom line, and read my notes to all of you, we're in support of the development with the following items put forth, not for consideration, but as minimum requirements to be addressed correctly. Number 1, the drainage and flood control. The property is notorious for the amount of flooding that it has created, plus the time and effort that the city has had to put forth to address the stormwater issues, including the multiple regrading efforts. The council, when it approves the development of this property, and we fully expected it will, and quite frankly, over the time we've been here and the different things that we've seen that have come up for that property, this is probably the best use of that property. So we love the idea of what's going on, but we need to address the basics of this, right? The coefficient of the water flow. So this is one of the things that I have a little bit of a disagreement on. If you look at what Texas has already in place under nctog.org, where it talks about management of stormwater, currently with the land as it is today, it's got a coefficient of 0.5. When we go to all the roofs and roads and everything that we're talking about, we go to a coefficient of 1, which means we're going to double the amount of water that comes off that land. So while the idea is not to impact what we have already currently in place, the challenge is you still impact it, right? And today, if you double the amount of water that comes off that land, and if you fill the ponds up, and they will fill, right? But if you fill the ponds up and they flow over, and the correct term for it is hydraulic jumping, right? So that's what we have today, where you get so much water that comes down that it jumps over the sides of the pond barriers into our property. When that water flows out to Shady Shores as it is currently, Shady Shores fills up. It fills up neighbors that are along Shady Shores itself, because if you look at about 4 houses down from where a CenturyLink building is, it crests back up again. And this is from previous construction that the city has done in the expansion of utilities and other things. But the challenge then is as it goes further on down the road and gets down to about Dalton and Meadow, those folks in every one of these rain events, they flood all the way up to their front doors, right? And if you double that water that's going into those water ingress into their front doors and well past that, right? So I think it's important to take into further consideration, and I like the idea that you had about having mechanical control of the water flow, but I think it's going to be a challenge nonetheless.
Well, thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Mr. Edward Beaver. Please state your name and your address, and you have 3 minutes, sir.
Yes, my name's Ed Beaver. I live in Somerset, 3307 Attaway Cove. I am adjacent to Shady Shores Road. I'm a resident for over 16 years in the community, a second homeowner. We don't want to get into dollars, we don't have enough time for that, but I've spent lots of time over the years digging, working with old management that's been here in Corinth from back as inspectors from Mr. Brown to try to help for the water that has pre-existed at this time now and in the past that has gone out on the Shady Shores Road coming down the side and is doing reverse. As one of my neighbors has mentioned, I am the 4th house on that block. And I have photos and videos of water rushing down my property that is backtracking. So it literally comes off the ranch, down to Shady Shores, turns back around and goes back through our street, which we have no culverts, all the way out back to the entry and then back into the culvert. And I have put floated boats from Blue Dye to do these tests. So we are not against the development whatsoever. We would like to see something happen there. It's a great opportunity for the city of Corinth. I'm 100% with Corinth, whether it be fire department, city, what I'm on every Facebook there is, and community I can help. But we really need to address what's going on in Shady Shores as far as the drainage issues, and it does continue all the way down as you get on into the school areas, and it has been a problem since I've moved there. And I have personally came in with the city and brought in bobcats and fixed the drainage. And then, of course, since then we've had fiber optic sewage lines, water lines all dug in, and it has created banks. As a resident and a homeowner, I've tried my best to reach out. I've tried this last week, came in, sent emails, notes, just to try to to talk to someone to go, what can I do just because I don't live in the 200 feet band? How can I voice my opinion that this is a bigger concern than just a detention pond and that one drainage? What happens to it when it leaves there? Whether it's at a 1 or a 5, I can testify right now today, the rain we had 48 hours ago was 6 inches standing in my backyard. And I have had to put thousands of dollars of rock just to control that water to keep it away from my personal residence. My neighbor next door has had to put up retaining walls in his backyard. So, not that they won't do their very best to develop for us, but what I'm concerned with is we're waiting on a bond to widen Shady Shores Road to address 3-lane, to address water issues, when that could be a bigger issue before that bond ever actually comes to pass. So I just ask the city and your officials to please research. If I'm at the top of the hill, I feel really bad for the people at the bottom because I have witnessed last year it all the way up to their door.
Thank you. Okay, we have two other people that would like this to go on the record. They wish not to speak, but would like to record a position for it, and that's Edward Church. And we have Bob and Kathy Baker at 1121 North Corinth Street. They are against, and they have documentation here why they're against it. And this will go in the records for the public hearing. Is there anybody else that had turned in a request that would like to speak? If not, I'll close the public hearing and I'd entertain a motion on this item.
May I ask a question to staff before I make a motion, sir?
Sure.
Thank you. Ma'am. Yeah. So the bonding that we had just discussed and the potential, I know we've got to work with Shady Shores to fix Shady Shores Road. And I understand that some of that up and down Shady Shores Road, especially down towards the south, is resident induced. Like they've put roads over the drainage and it's backed stuff up. The drainage solution that we're talking about with this proposed bond, that's to retrench all the way down and keep the draining flowing.
If you wouldn't mind, and I know that George Marshall is
city
here
engineer.
in the audience.
Oh, there's George. He was camouflaged with his tie back there.
I was hoping I didn't have to come up here. No, I'm just kidding. One, I have not been able to, they're in the zoning process, and we really don't get into the detailed drainage design at all until they've gotten their entitlements for the zoning process. And so I have not had a chance to look into detail as far as their drainage design, what they're proposing. Generally, what I'm hearing sounds well and good. The gentleman's reference to the North Central Texas Council of Governments, standards, that's actually the book that we go by, that you guys approved back in 2019. But generally speaking, what they're talking about, I believe, is good. I think, some of the concerns with the existing swale, if they start piping that water to Shady Shores instead of being overland flow like it is today, I think that's definitely gonna be a help. And this is the first I've heard about water potentially going around and then coming back out, and I'd love to be able to speak with you later about all those things. So that's new information, and I'd be glad to speak with any other resident about drainage. Last year, we conducted a study with Friesen Nichols to analyze the area down by Meadows to Dalton, as far as those homes down there. That's been a major concern of the cities for a long time. We kind of worked on Lynchburg Creek, got the grant for that. That's moving along and under design, and we felt like we needed to move on the next really problem area. Unfortunately, the area is not in the floodplain technically, but we know there's at least one or two houses that have water that gets into them. The analysis that the engineering firm came up with was that ditch can only carry a 2-year storm today. And we designed a 100-year or 1% chance storm, which is a very significant difference. And so, I think this, during workshop, we talked about, selling some bonds and potentially throwing, $1.2 million towards, helping those culverts down there along Dalton. In the long term, when West Shady Shores Road is widened, the goal is to get the drainage underground in a piping system and do away with the bar ditches. I can't promise that they're going to be gone 100%. As an example, if you look at Dobbs Road, where we widened it from Corinth Parkway a couple hundred feet or so. There is still a bar ditch on the south side that still had to be able to maintain so people's backyards could drain to something. But in general, John can attest, I'm a very stickler for drainage. That's my number one issue and my number one thing I deal with here. Every time it rains, we get calls. So I'm sorry. I know that was a lot, but
you answered my question. So we've got a fix coming. What I'd like is if you could exchange numbers with this gentleman over here and kind of keep your eyes on this project and ensure that whatever we're doing here, our intent is that it's going to be improving things, not making things worse.
Absolutely.
And I think with them having the opportunity to call you next time it rains, have you come out and see what it is that they're talking about. We've got several months before this is going to be off and popping. That'll give us an idea to actually put eyes on what they're talking about. And then when we turn around with the bonding issue, we'll make sure that that's actually solving a problem that we're hoping that we're solving. Okay.
Absolutely. Okay. Thank you.
Any other comments?
And Mayor, I just make the comment because I received the question earlier. Do we need to make addressing the drainage part of the motion tonight? And in reality, kind of like George is talking about, those technical issues we're going to have to address, and they're going to have to satisfy our staff through the civil engineering process. So that's all going to be vetted very seriously.
Okay. Joe.
Oh, I think he just said it, but I mean, just so that it's clear to everyone in the audience, zoning does not give you the right to build anything. It gives you the right to design for a certain use. That's it. They have to provide the staff with a site plan, and that site plan has to comply with our ordinances related to drainage. And this particular landowner has to control the water coming off their land. It sounds like a lot of the issues, and I think we probably know this, at least at the staff level, on Shady Shores, have nothing to do with this property, or certainly it's not just this property. The issues are bigger than that. Excuse me. So we can't impose on this landowner an obligation to fix the drainage problems on Shady Shores. All we can require this landowner to do is to address the drainage coming off their property. And George does an excellent job of that, and I'm sure that'll be done in this case before they get a building permit.
Any other comment by council? Not, I'd entertain a motion on this item.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve as presented with the following stipulation. Exhibit G, Plan Development Standards, be revised to include the following additional provision. Garages shall not front onto private drives A, B, C, D, and E, and shall be rear accessed by alleys and or fire lanes only, as specifically depicted on Exhibit B, PD concept plan.
Second.
Any further discussion? Cast your vote. It's unanimous. Business agenda. Consider and act on the Second Amendment amended unimproved property contract with Wolverine Interest, LLC, for the purchase of the 4.705 acres for a mixed-use development. Mr. Campbell.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is in regard to an existing agreement we have in place, a purchase and sale agreement with Wolverine Interest. We discussed this previously. This is for their mixed-use development. And there is a deadline in there for them to get the property purchased by December 30th, and they are still going through their entitlement process with the staff, and so this is a recommendation that we extend that to the later of March 30th, March 31st, or 30 days after they get their entitlements. Sorry, Elise. I'm sorry. Don't leave.
Excellent presentation. Elise, do you have anything to add?
I do, actually. So in addition to the closing date for Wolverine, we're amending the acreage from 4.6 to 4.7, and we have to change the price to reflect the increase in the acreage, and henceforth Because we're increasing the acreage, we had to update the survey and legal description. Was it just a miscalculation? No, the right-of-way was extended. Oh, got it.
Well, in the future, you'll know not to delegate your presentations to Mr. Campbell because he's incomplete.
I'll never do that again.
But
So don't leave.
But also, just another thing that the EDC board did make recommendation at the December 5th board meeting to approve the contract. So staff recommends that council approve the contract as presented.
Is there any question from council? If not, I'd entertain a motion on that item.
I would make a motion that we approve as presented the amendment to the contract.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Cast your vote. It's unanimous. Consider an act on the third amended unimproved properties contract with MR Development Corporation and Carlton Development Limited for the purchase of the 7.533 acres for a multifamily development. Mr. Campbell.
Mayor and Council, Economic Development Director Elise Beck has a presentation on this item.
No, but it's called teamwork. So, so before you have the third amended contract with MR Development and Carlton Development for the multifamily development north of Walton. We are proposing that we extend the option period from December to February 28th, and the closing date, the latter of March 31st, 2023, or 30 days after the approval of the PD. The EDC board did make recommendation to approve the contract, and staff is recommending council approve the contract as presented.
Is there any question from council? I'd entertain a motion on this item.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve as presented.
I'll second.
Any further discussion? Cast your vote. It's unanimous. Council comment and future agenda items. The purpose of this section is to allow each council member the opportunity to provide general updates and or comments to fellow council members, the public, and or staff on any issues or future events. Also, in accordance with Section 30.085 of the Code of Ordinances, at this time, any council member may direct that an item be added as a business item to any future agenda. Mr. Burke.
Oh, I hope this is our last meeting of the year. So I'd like to wish everyone a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year, and thank the staff for a great year, and I hope you have good holidays.
Mr. Garber.
Nothing, sir. Thank you.
Mr. Holsworth.
Same here. Happy birthday. Happy birthday to everybody in 2023. How about that? And I was the first to wish you a happy birthday. Aha. Merry Christmas and happy and safe New Year. Thank you, Mayor.
Are you taking some medicine? Mrs. Henderson.
I want to just ditto what they've said. Merry Christmas to everyone. But also, this has been a trying year. And what we've done, I think, is just amazing. The way that everyone has just kept going, and to staff, the way you all stepped up and just took over and kept things running. Thank you for all that you've done. We really do appreciate it. And Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, Happy Birthday. Happy anniversary.
Wow. We're really going. Mrs. Pickens.
Yeah, being in the 5 spot, it tend to be redundant. But I just wanted to thank y'all for a great year. And even though, like Tina said, the spring was tough. And y'all really did pull together and made some amazing accomplishments. And welcome, Scott, to the Corinth family. And y'all have a Merry Christmas, and let's have a great 23.
Mr. Campbell.
I don't think I can beat any of that. Merry Christmas. Thank you.
Well, if you'd quit making presentations for your economic development director.
It's my New Year's resolution.
Is that your New Year's resolution? Okay. How about our city attorney? Does she have anything she wants to say?
I have nothing to say other than Merry Christmas to everyone.
Okay. Again, I'd just like to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And again, a big applaud to all you staff members for all the efforts that you go through. You make it pretty easy for us up here when we have to make decisions because it's so well presented and so well prepared that it it makes it easy for us to make that good decision. And again, I appreciate the support you give to our citizens because they're here tonight to listen to solutions to our problems, and you guys do a great job of answering those questions. So, and if you haven't been down to see that new dog park, I'll tell you that is something that the city's going to be very proud of, and I can't thank that young lady enough for all her efforts. And if you got something you need to buy your kids for Christmas, you might want to buy them a brick, So then your name will be in stone down there down in the dog park. So with that, we're going to executive session. We're going to be discussing 551-071 legal advice, 551-072 real estate, and 551-087 economic development. So at this time, we'll be going into executive session.